I'm doing work that I don't enjoy, that doesn't energize me. So if I'd had this tool, I could have had a better conversation with them and said, hey, I am burnout, I'm frustrated, and I'm unhappy. And here's why. Tenacity is a competency, it's not my genius.
Welcome back, guys, to the Dr. Mo Show, where we give people and talk about the freedom to shift. We talk about changes in health that create situations where we need to pivot. We talk about non-traditional career choices. And today I've got Katie Armentrout, who we are going to talk about leadership. And as my dad said, it wasn't a midlife crisis for me. It was a call to action. So words matter. So instead of a crisis, Katie, give me some feedback, some background on you, where your journey kind of came from and where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so exciting to be here. So my call to action / crisis / rock bottom moment. So I call myself a recovering corporate person. So I was probably 20 years into my career, 13 years I'd spent at a Fortune 500 company, and I loved it for a long period of time. And then I didn't. And yes. So I had this, I was there 13 years, and I was a North American sales director over all of this business. And things just got progressively worse in our culture. And I didn't know why, because I liked all of the people that I worked with. For the most part, the company didn't really hire a lot of jerks. It was a great company, great people, and everyone's smart, everyone's good, like they're ethical people, right? And then they're just kind. But then somehow the culture in this one part of the organization where I was, it just got so toxic. And basically the VP who I'd worked for 8 years had said, like, okay, we're going to move you to this role. Oh, by the way, we've never talked to you about it. It's nothing you're interested in. These are not his words, actually, but and I said, what are my options? And they said, well, you don't have any. If you want to stay in this division where I was performing and promoted and all those things and valued, then they're like, oh, well, you have to take this role, or you can look for something outside of this in the organization. And I felt incredibly, like it was like a betrayal. It was hard. And essentially I was just miserable in my job. I did take that role for about 8 weeks. And then I said, I can't do this anymore. And I left the company. And again, I'd been there for 13 years. And the rock bottom moment before I left, I was like this sound, like it's really not that bad. I've healed from it, but like I woke up one night and I was crying on the bathroom floor because I'm like, oh, I'll just go in the bathroom so my husband won't hear me. But the acoustics, little pro tip here, the acoustics in the bathroom are much louder. So he comes in and he sits down, and of course he knows all of this of what's going on. And he's like, there are other jobs, right? What? There are other companies out there. And it was just something I really needed to hear of. I get to choose my life. I don't have to stay in this. And so I ended up leaving the company. I had, we have 3 young kids at the time. They were 2, 5, and 7. He was also in a corporate role, but I left and I had 0 plans of what I was going to do next. And then that launched me into, I took some time off to heal, worked for a nonprofit for a little bit. And then I launched this company in leadership development because I read the book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Pat Lencioni. And that book changed my life. And when I read it, it's like, oh, that team was dysfunctional. And it's like, I could still like everybody and everybody's still smart and they're still good people. But the way that people work together, it's not like intuitive. It's not natural. And so I learned about all of that and realized that's the reason. And I wish I'd had that tool. I wish I'd read that book 5 or 10 years earlier. How did I get 20 years into my career and not know this? So I launched a leadership development company where I specialize in working with teams, creating high performing teams, and teaching them these skills and frameworks so that they can be aware of the dysfunction in their organization, which I think a lot of people are, but then there are actually tools to use to address it. And that's what I don't think most people realize.
I find that interesting. I didn't read that book. I did read The Six Types of Working Genius because I was having a heck of a time in my own company. I couldn't get things done and I couldn't figure out why. And it's funny that you mentioned that because I was full-time on the ground in my company in our main ER for 13 years. And I was taken out of my position and put in a different position that I have stayed in for 2 years, admittedly very minimal now. And I realized it's so funny because you said you were performing in your job, you were doing all the things, you were rocking it and always trying to improve, I bet, because you were trying to figure out, I like these people. Why isn't this working? Why does the shoe feel too small? Why? And again, we try to push and we try to enact change. And when there is that dynamic, and you know it, you don't know it until you know it, right? I always tell people, once you see, you can't unsee, but you don't know it
Mhm.
until you know it. And that's a problem because what you do now, and yes, I got shingles. I lost half my hair. I mean, I wasn't crying on the bathroom floor that I can recall. It was probably the closet if I was. The acoustics are better in the closet. We redid our closet. Now it's probably a great place to cry. I just created a life
Hopefully,
I don't need to cry.
hopefully the closet is carpet, and maybe there's a pillow or something in there.
Exactly. My husband would be like, "Why is the pillow in the closet?" Well, here's how this works. We
This
have to,
podcast interview, and
right. And she said, "Here's what we have to do for acoustics." He'd be like, "Okay." And he actually told me once because I have a really good friend that she and I joke about crying in the closet. And he's like, "How about you create a life that you don't need to cry in the closet?" And
right? Yeah. You can make that choice. You don't
yes.
have to. And that's really the freedom that my husband gave me in that moment was he's like, you can leave, right? Like you and I hadn't thought about it. I knew I wasn't a lifer there, but I didn't want to leave. Honestly, I
Mhm.
didn't. But I'm so glad I did.
And I hear you. I didn't want to leave either. I didn't want to leave, period. And it's funny because my husband had said to me, this is about 6 months or longer later. He said, the easiest thing for you to do would have been just to go and get another job. And because we were qualified, it's what we were doing, it's what we were good at doing. You were succeeding, you were rocking it. The easiest thing would have been to shift to a different company, but you didn't. You chose to shift into what feeds your soul and to go back and take that Katie from 5 years before and say, what if you had known this? What would you have
Right.
done
And
different?
it's interesting you mentioned it because when I left and I didn't know what I was going to do, and I still could. This was 4 years ago now, and I still couldn't do a resume. I never did because all I could think, and it made no sense to me at the time, but I kept thinking, I don't want to work for another company. I don't want another job. And at this time, I had no vision of starting my own company. That was not in my thought process at all. That didn't come until, um, a little bit later. But I knew I couldn't do that anymore. I just couldn't be a part of that organization anymore. And that made me really sad. And it was terrifying to leave because I'd always been a W 2 employee. I'd always been an employee my whole life, even starting at 12 working for my parents. Tip, if you have children, there are no child labor laws that apply to your own children. I think they can start working at any age, doing anything, especially in the 80s and 90s when I was 12. They're like, go in the warehouse with the box cutters. It's fine. Climb some shelves. So, I've just always worked for someone else. And the thought of like having my own company and creating my own like products or services was really daunting. And at that point when I left, it hadn't even really entered my mind, but I just knew I wasn't like running towards something better. I was running away from a situation that I just couldn't be in anymore. And so now that I go back, I feel called to go back into companies and help people who are like me or like the leadership and understand, hey, more than anything, it's like there are real tools, simple tools like Working Genius. I'm a certified Working Genius facilitator. So I love that you read that book. There are simple frameworks like that that you can learn as a leader, even if it's not a business owner, but at a big company. And you can read it and say, I'm going to implement this with my team. I'm going to take my whole team through the Working Genius. I'm going to bring someone in to like give us this common language What I always say it does is it changes the conversations that we have with people. So one of the conversations I had before I left, this was, I call it the beginning of the end. All I could say to my leader and my VP at the time was, I'm burnout, I'm frustrated, and I'm unhappy. And oh, by the way, I'm a woman and I had just had my third child. Those things don't happen. You're like, I didn't say those, but that's obviously part of it. And I don't want to say that. Nobody wants to say that
Right.
ever, especially to your two male leaders. And then as a leader too, as someone who's had direct reports for a lot of my professional career, as a leader, it's not that you don't want to hear it, but you can't do anything. It's hard to do anything with that information because you're hearing the emotions, right? And so what the conversation at the time went like, he's like, well, self-care was a new word. And so he's like, well, how's your self-care going? You could tell he'd just been through some HR training. He was trying, and I commend him for
Oh,
that. He's trying.
poor
But
thing.
I'm like, a massage isn't going to help. But will you expense
Right?
it? Like, can I get a week off? And it's like a week off. Nothing would really fix the problem.
Because the problem wasn't your problem. Was partly, right? Because you were in this
Yeah.
situation that, again, it no longer fit what was working. It just wasn't working.
And now looking at Working Genius or any of the assessments or the five dysfunctions of a team, any of those books that have frameworks in it, I could have taken Working Genius to him. It didn't exist at the time and said, you know what? Tenacity is one of my competencies, but it's not my genius. So I get some joy out of tenacity, but not a lot of it. And at the time, the team I was on, I think it was a tenacity desert. Nobody had it. Nobody, if you're not familiar with the Working Genius, tenacity is you get joy and energy out of completing things. And it can be a lot of administrative things typically, but
Yep.
anyway, I was overwhelmed. Now I can look back and say I was overwhelmed and burnout. And burnout doesn't necessarily come from quantity and overwhelm, like, oh, I have too much work. It also comes from I'm doing work that I don't enjoy, that doesn't energize me. So if I'd had this tool, I could have had a better conversation with them and said, hey, I am burnout, I'm frustrated, and I'm unhappy. And here's why. Tenacity is a competency. It's not my genius. Can we get some of this work off my plate to someone who does enjoy it? And how do we shift it? It turns those emotions into a solvable problem. So that was a big shift for me and it was after I left, I started learning all of these tools that completely shifted my perspective on leadership and realized leaders are supposed to be vulnerable, that you can lead with vulnerability. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to, like, it's not a dictatorship. It's about hiring a balanced team around you. You should be able to admit your weaknesses. So I had a major change in thought of like, what is leadership and how am I leading? So it was, yeah, that's what and now I just geek out on these books all the time.
But that's once you find a resource that resonates like that, I think it's super important because you can now speak in a language that it's not run by emotion. We know when the frontal lobe, when the emotions kick in, your frontal lobe checks out. That's just how it
Exactly.
goes. So, we joke about crying in the closet, but that's no time to send an email to your boss. That's not the time. So let me ask you this on leadership because I coach physicians to shift. And my goal is to keep physicians on the ground in a capacity that they are fed from other means, right? And that has to be financial, it has to be emotional,
Mhm.
because we know in the healthcare space, there's a lot of burnout and it's both lifestyle and occupational related. And so by decompressing that, so I'm going to get a physician in here that will come to me and I can guarantee, I mean, there's a certain, we all think we're special snowflakes. Let's be honest.
They are, yes.
We're all special. You're all
Mhm.
asking the same questions, guys. It's not special. So, no matter what industry you're in, you're going to go and you're going to think to myself, oh, I can do this. I want to, for example, I want to treat my own patients my own way. I just want a small panel of patients to decompress so I can feed my soul in medicine and then go back to work part time or whatever I'm doing, but come back fulfilled. And they're going to ask, well, what do you mean leadership? Why do I necessarily need leadership? It's just me treating my patients. I'm only going to have like one other staff member. So, leadership, I'll tell you my amateur opinion at this because leadership is not only leading one other staff member, leadership is picturing an organization down the road and leading yourself into leading that organization.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to, vision is a big part of it. And there's lots of different types of there's self leadership. And I will tell you, for you and anyone in the audience who has kids, or if you happen to be a kid of someone else, you can think about that relationship. 100% of everything I learn about leadership is directly applicable to parenting. And it's like everyone's a leader. It's not about your title. Leadership is about influence. And that was something that I experienced, that I have experienced, even when I wasn't the CEO or the VP. I still had a lot of influence because people knew me, they respected me, they liked me. And so you get a lot of influence by that. So everyone, you are a leader wherever you're at, regardless of what your title is. And it's how you show up, and really it's how you treat other people. So the trainings that I do when I talk about leadership development, the number one thing is, how do you have a tough conversation with someone? And it's giving and receiving feedback. And these are human skills, like they're leadership skills, but leadership development sounds better than human development, I think, as a company. Um,
Better than reparenting your employees.
right, right. Parenting workshop, but it's really leadership. Yeah, it's being able to, because I think not everybody, but the way that when we think about conflict, one of the game changing things I learned from Pat's work and from Pat Lencioni's work and other sources and other communities is that leadership, it starts with yourself. And the most valuable trait in any leader is a self-aware leader. And that means your self-awareness means that you have a humility about yourself. So, the work, going back to any of the personality assessments, I know how I'm wired. What brings me joy? And do I lean into my things that bring me joy? Do I lean into the gifts that I have? I know I'm great with people and connecting and all that. And then what's also about self-awareness is you also understand your weaknesses, and everyone has them. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. What do you suck at? What frustrates the heck out of you? What type of work makes you want to bang your head into a wall repeatedly? And you need to be aware of that, because if you can't admit that to yourself, let me tell you, your team knows it, whether you want to admit it to yourself or not. And so when you can talk about your weaknesses and you're very open, like, hey, I am not a spreadsheet person, or I'm not a big picture person, whatever it is, then you want to hire someone on your team who's close to you, who is the opposite of you, and they complement you. So that's where the leader doesn't have to have all the answers, and they don't have to show like, oh, they don't have to be stoic all the time. Being self-aware shows that you're human and that you're humble about it. And that's when people gain respect. That's when people start respecting you. They're like, oh, wow, they're human, right? So those are, again, a lot of the things that I learned that totally had to to shift my mind and realize, oh, that is valuable. And then when I went through my own mind of like, who are all the people that I respect in my life, not just like, but really respect, and that I would go through a brick wall for, they're the leaders who are humble and have a lot of those qualities.
So, do you work with, tell me who you work with?
So it's actually broad, surprisingly. I work with business owners, and it can be across any business. So I work with, an insurance company, marketing. There's a fast food chain that's one of my biggest clients. So I work with their individual restaurants, public school district I've been working with for a couple years. So it's kind of broadened out. What I would say, outside of demographics, I look at value graphics. And so it's good leaders are the ones who hire me, I would say. It's not the ones who need the most work, because they're not self-aware. It's great leaders. Like Chick-fil-A is one of my largest customers. And they have if you know anything about Chick-fil-A as a business, not just as the chicken, they have to do a ton of leadership development. So
Yep.
it's really great leaders who already value leadership. They
Yep.
will make investments in training and consulting and, in coaching, because they know it makes them better. Because you can either view people as an investment, or you can view people as an expense. So leaders who view people as an investment are the ones that I work with.
I love that because it's a very specific subset of people. And I joke, I do a direct to consumer, I suppose, platform, a fat loss platform. I have a medical practice. And whether you're in the medical practice or the fat loss coaching or you're a physician being coached by me, nobody finds me by accident. It's because it's the people that are ready to change. It's I've spoken to quite a few physicians that want to branch out, become entrepreneurs, own their time, own their freedom, own their location freedom, open up that door. But the door is really heavy. And
Yeah.
sometimes people can't even crack the door enough to get the light in. And those aren't your people and those aren't my people.
And even when you think about like with the non-business people that I work with, if they're in healthcare or if they're in education, I don't know where you get leadership training in med school.
Huh. You don't get nutrition training. You don't get
Like,
leadership training. You don't get financial training.
right.
If anyone's listening, Dr. Glaucomflecken he's on YouTube. He's on all the platforms. He's an ophthalmologist who's a comedian who's become quite known in the space. He's given huge keynote speeches and commencement speeches. And there is a recent video, somewhat recent, that he talks about somebody studying for the boards and they're studying these obscure diseases. And he's like, well, why do you have to memorize that? He's like, well, for the boards. And he's like, but you can look it up. And he holds up his phone. And he's like, do you know how you get paid? He's like, we go to work and then we get money. He's like, do you know where that comes from? He's like, the money people. And but that is such a commentary on we don't get leadership trained. Now we do some, right? I've got a couple of physicians that I've coached that actually want to start going into residencies and medical schools and start giving people, because now we have to do burnout training, right? Because
Yeah.
unfortunately, physicians have a very high rate of suicide. So we're going to go a little dark for a moment, but that's an important thing to realize. It's considered going dark, but it's the reality. So that's the
Mhm.
frustrating thing to me that we're not going to admit. I mean, 25 years ago when I was in med school, if that doesn't scare you that it was that long ago, we talked about this because physicians had just overtaken lawyers, police, and in all the top categories for suicide, depression, drug addiction, divorce. And it hasn't gotten any better. So, when you talk about leadership training, again, it's not about how do you look down on people as a commodity. It's how do you sit with people and say, we are in this together. How do we grow?
Yeah. And it's too when I think about, because I have a close friend here who has he's a physician, he has his own practice. And we had a lot of conversations. And I said, you need a director of operations. Running a business and being the way we think about leadership broadly is we need to think about it. It's a separate major. If you think about college majors, it's like there's marketing, there's finance, there's accounting. Leadership is a separate skill set. And so you want to know I'm using air quotes, what qualified me for leadership is that I was a great salesperson. So I was in B2B sales most of my life. So business to business sales. They're like, well, great. You made all these sales. So naturally, we're going to give you direct reports to lead.
Okay.
It's the same thing. Like there's three types of training. I always say there's on the job training. So that's your medical training, your like finance, whatever, marketing, sales, whatever it is. Like there's that training that you get, your on the job training. Very important. There's a second bucket of legal training that I call it how not to get a sued training. Important to know. Okay, like harassment, malpractice, whatever it is. Like, let's not do
Yep.
this. Okay. Back in the day, I was taught that by clips of The Office of don't do what Michael Scott does, for any Office fans. Anyway, very important. But then what I do now is what I never got, which is the soft skills that are really the important skills of, again, earning people's respect, building trust. It all comes down to how do you build trust with your patients, with your manager, with your colleagues, with vendors, whoever it is. Like, how do you really build trust with people so that you have a relationship and that you can get results and you can hold people accountable, get buy-in and things like that. So,
How do
and
you
I,
become somebody worth following?
right. Yeah. Leaders don't produce followers, they produce more leaders.
Yes.
think that's John Maxwell. I'm pretty sure.
I I,
Um,
I think so too. Somewhere in
it
my
sounds
brain, I've got it up there in the masses.
Yeah, and it's so true. And culturally where I've been in, at different companies, it just was not a culture of learning. And so when you going back to like who do I work with, I can really tell like if people they're readers, like leaders are readers. And we know each other from the same coaching community. And so we're always, like reading and learning more and finding answers to problems, like finding problems. We're always looking to like solve our problems in one way or another. And those
Mhm.
are skills that aren't really taught. So again, like I could also just call my company and what I do things I wish I'd known 10 years ago that nobody ever taught me. And if you're
For real.
really lucky, you have a mentor or you have a really good boss who is more kind of naturally a leader and can teach you those things. But it's not like baked in yet. It's not like baked into our culture. So, I was saying I got promoted to leadership because I was good at sales. And so I get all the management training about, again, how not to get a sued. This is how you do a performance review, blah, blah, blah. But I was never taught, like, how do you really give someone feedback? How do you give it in the moment? How do you fire somebody with dignity?
Right.
Like, these are all things I train people on now.
Yeah. And that's, I have a very good friend who's been in the HR space for over 30 years. And the things that she finds and like the consistent questions. She's written a book and she's, kind of thinking about branching out on her own. She's a
Yeah.
friend, not a client. So of course we bat things back and forth, but it's she comes up with the same questions over and over. And I said, well, wouldn't it be nice if these people knew ahead of time, hey, this is even as how to be a good employee? Because from that standpoint, not everybody wants to do this entrepreneurship thing. It is not for the faint of
Don't
heart,
do it.
right? It is
Don't do it.
not for the faint of heart. If you haven't read The Road Less Stupid, have you read that book?
No, I
Oh,
haven't.
a
I'm going to
hundred.
add it to my list.
You have got to read this book. It has been a very slow read for me because it's been a digestible for sure. And there are
Okay.
so many tidbits in there. And the number one thing is do not undergo an entrepreneurship journey. It is not for this. It's not, unless you really are called to do so, don't do it.
I Yeah, that's what I tell people. I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm not just committed to it. I have a conviction about me. Like
Yep.
there are days, especially like earlier, where I'm like, I wanted to quit. I wish I could quit.
That those
I
words
just,
resonate. Oh, please let me not care about this. Please. Just for the
I,
day.
yeah,
You can't. It's just ingrained in you. And come to find out, for most of us, if we looked back, like you were working for your parents, joked, I have a friend down the road who is a very large business owner in the area. And he said, I'm a terrible employee. He said, I didn't know it, but I was a terrible employee. And that's what happens to most of us because our voice gets too big.
yeah,
People don't like that.
yeah. But also to be a good leader, I think you also have to be a good follower.
Yep.
And that was one of the things when I finally decided to step out on my own. I was working at this small nonprofit company. There was 5 of us, I think, at the time. I was the first person they ever hired to do, like, marketing, communications, sales, and it was in that, I'd been there a little bit less than a year, and the founder is amazing, and we both knew going in, I said, "This is probably, like, a 2-year gig for me until
You're a
I can
rebound
find."
fling for me, just so
Yeah,
you know.
exactly, exactly. So you're my rebound job. It was odd. Like it was such a wonderful, I just love the company. Changing Gears, changing-gears.org. It's a phenomenal company here in Cincinnati. And but I was about a year into that. And what was crazy to me is so I was in this corporate role, like North America sales director over, I think, I don't even know, it was like 60 million in business, maybe. I don't remember anymore, but it was like a big deal. It was a big job ish. And then, Fortune 500 company, I'm like, God, this is like, this just isn't the right place for me. I'm really frustrated. And then, or I wasn't fulfilled. That's the right word. I
Yep.
wasn't fulfilled. And then I go to this wonderful small nonprofit, local. I had admired this company for years, like the decade that they'd been around. And through just divinely orchestrated through only God, that's the only way I can explain it. I end up on their board. I end up as an employee then. And it was wonderful. And then it was about a year in, I was just as unfulfilled.
Mm.
I'm like, I have the best leader I've ever had. And then I'm like, and I love the company. I love the mission. Why am I so unfulfilled?
Hmm.
And this was, and I realized I don't want to be anyone's director anymore. Like I finally had the confidence of like, I could do this. Like I want to be in charge. And I'd never had that.
Hmm.
And so when people ask me about, how did I launch and like, did you just have the most confidence? I'm like, I didn't at the time, but I knew one thing and, I knew that I could do it. I wanted to try. I would regret it if I never tried.
Yep.
I'm like, I could try and fail, but if I never tried, I would really regret it. I have to do it. And so I phrase it like this. I passed the toughest job interview of my life. And that was, I decided to hire myself.
Yeah. I always joke and I'm like, don't be an entrepreneur because my boss is a huge jerk. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
totally. She sucks.
right? She puts too much on my plate.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do have a great respect now being like a business owner and being a leader in a different capacity. I have a lot more like way like off the charts respect for other leaders
Right.
because when you're just, when you're an employee and you're a follower, like you just don't know. Like you
You don't
have
get
no
it.
clue. No. It's like taking parenting advice from like a 15-year-old.
Yes. You know what's really funny in my space? I actually have more respect for healthcare organizations
Yeah.
because I know how hard it is to run a business of 20 people. Imagine 20 million.
Oof.
Like the thought of that, right? Because or you'll have people come in and I'm not defending. I am defending. Let me just out there. I am defending the healthcare system from a standpoint of boy did we get out of hand. Because we've got so many people, nobody knows what people are doing. Everybody wants to do the best for the patient, but nobody knows how to do it in this current system. It's like
Yeah.
when you see, like, 'cause I love old buildings and old architecture, and not from I can tell you anything about said architecture, but I love like old hospitals. But if you look at an old hospital that's taking care of patients today, they've added on a wing and then this other wing and then this other wing and or an EMR, right? They're software systems. They're called Epic. The largest one out there, which is a fantastic system, is called Epic. Well, it's Epic because they kept having to add on a wing and add on features and add on this and so finally the structure itself becomes unrecognizable.
Yeah. Yep.
And looking at it from an entrepreneurial point of view, my business today is nothing like it was 2 years ago, and
Mm.
it shouldn't be.
Yeah. Yeah. At some point, I think you have to stabilize it and like have a core.
Yep.
But yeah, as you're describing all of that and like all the add-ons, one of my former colleagues used the phrase, it's like a New England farmhouse.
Yes.
I did not like that doesn't resonate with me. But he was like, yeah, you do this, you do this, and to use the bathroom, you have to go outside and walk around the house just to go to the bathroom because you can't access it anymore. And then there's a bridge in there. And
Yep.
yeah, and I've heard like that's a great analogy about just how we build a company. And at some point, like you have to,
Some to connect the bathroom,
yeah, yes,
right? I'm
you
gonna
have to
use
solve
that
that
from now on.
problem. You either need to move or design from scratch, like, and
Yep.
that's or reinvent, and that is definitely part of a business life cycle. It depends on the industry and it depends on a lot of things, but it should be rhythm of like, okay, let's look at where we want to go, what did we build? Do we want to go? And what are the things that need to happen in between? And I think a lot of times it's not necessarily about what do we add, but it's about what do we
Yes.
subtract.
Oh,
It's like,
1,000%. I've been talking a lot to my crew lately about, "Guys, we need to Elon Musk this, okay? We need to take everything away until something breaks."
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's like the key isn't a subtraction. And so when I coach people, I have this program that I love. I call it's the Top Talent Accelerator, but I coach middle management. So
Nice.
new hires get a lot of attention because they're new, and then executives get all the like one-on-one, like $1,000 per hour coaching and all that. But you have this whole section of the middle management, or as I call it, the Jan Brady of leadership.
Love it.
Like we're the middle child, we're overlooked, and it's at least 3 to 5 years. And it's like I didn't want to be the CEO, but like, what do you do with these people in the middle? How do you serve them? And so I have a coaching a group serve those people because again, this is myself like 10 years ago, and
Mm.
it's teaching them these skills to either help them get promoted or just help them become better leaders where they're at. And it's been really fun. serve I can serve that population with all of these things very affordable, like effective way, and just give them like, sound bites. So I'm like helping them grow in their leadership skills and teaching them things that I don't think they would understand, or I don't think they would get it anywhere unless they were like self-seeking it. It's not typically part of their work and development plan. And I can't remember how I got off on that tangent.
That's
Uh,
okay. That's okay because I love you took it because now I know that it's that middle management. It's the people that are because they're like, I don't want to own the company, but
right.
how do I become better at what I do? How do I become that Seth Godin linchpin where even so much as did you read linchpin? Like start
Yeah.
there. People don't even know where to start, especially if they're, a few years into their career. They've been promoted to middle management and they're like, I don't know what to do here. Do I lead? Do I follow? You do both.
Right. Yeah. They don't even know who Seth Godin is, probably.
Again, I'm old. We talked about this a little bit beforehand.
I mean, I know, yeah, but I'm saying like a lot of the books that I read when I talk to some of the, my close friends who are back in the corporate world, they don't know who Pat Lencioni is.
Right. Oh, I didn't.
And
I mean, as a physician,
I,
like,
no, I didn't either. I didn't either. It's like, how about John Maxwell? And they're like, that sounds familiar. And I said, okay, for sure, for my corporate people in the house, for sure, you have a John Maxwell quote on one of your like 87 slides in that, presentation that you're doing. Like, for sure, he's in there somewhere.
yes. And if
Um,
you some of you but didn't know you heard of them, there's a difference.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's the work that I do now is it's so rewarding because it's such a difference. Again, there's so many frameworks out there. There's so many like books is where you learn a lot of them. But I have an MBA, so I say that I purchased an MBA, but now I'm earning my MBA. It wasn't until I launched a company that I'm like, oh, like this is the
That's
real
what they
stuff.
meant by this. Now I feel it. Well, it's like going
Right.
going to school or being a parent, people will tell you what it feels like to be in medical school or residency, but
Mhm.
you don't get it until you're there. You don't I
Yeah.
can't explain it to you. There's no way. I can sort of frontal lobe for it,
Yeah.
but that lizard brain is going to rear its ugly head and get ready.
Yeah. It's like the difference between being like a babysitter or a nanny and being a parent. Like
Yeah.
it's like
Yes.
you can be around kids, but you're not but they go home. Like if you're in daycare or nanny, it's like you're around them for a short period of time and then you hand them back to the parents and you don't typically carry the burden and like the worry and the care of them on your shoulders and think about it all the time. And that's, the difference with versus being an employee versus being an owner. It's like you carry the weight of the business with you.
And that's
And
actually what it does feel like sometimes. And I'm only a mom, be a dad, right? Because I don't have the parts. And so I don't know how it feels on the other side, but sometimes it does feel like I'm team mom. I'm worried about it. Like 9:30, and this is not good boundaries. I actually am much better most days about this. But last night I'm sending this Slack out at 9:30 because I had this thought. I'm like, ooh, I need to
yeah,
get this out of my brain. Part of it so I can sleep.
yeah,
But it is you are responsible for the feeding and growth of you're not it's not a company. It's the people
yeah,
inside that company. And sometimes people don't fit. Like you said about your culture, when you were in that culture, you didn't fit, but you didn't know why you didn't fit. And had you had the knowledge or the frameworks, you could have said, "Oh, this is why I don't fit." Oh, that's okay. I'll go find some place that I fit. And if I can't find it, I'll make it.
yeah, yeah. And it was to do it, but I wouldn't change a like, thing from it because, and then it's amazing. I have deep faith. So like it's amazing to me how God works and he uses everything. And he has a way of taking that pain and like all that, like we know a lot of entrepreneurs typically, I shouldn't say typically, but there's a huge chunk of entrepreneurs that we create companies to solve problems that we had. Like we're
Yes.
serving a previous version of ourselves.
Mhm.
A ton of us are like that. I don't know the percent or the stats on it, but yeah. So
But
yeah,
imagine if when
it
you
does
were crying in the
change.
bathroom When you were crying in the bathroom, imagine if
Oh, we're
there
back to
was
that.
I know, I'm grabbing you back to that. Imagine if we're crying in the bathroom, I'm crying in the closet, and you had someone that was there. Now, you had your husband, which was nice. He gave you that freedom to shift. He said, "You could just get another job,"
Yeah,
and but but again, or there are avenues, I guess, more instead of you could just, he reassured you that you could do something differently, or you could do the same thing in a different place or whatever. But
right.
imagine if you had you that walked in and said, "Okay, let's take a second. Let's reevaluate. Let's walk through this together." So instead of it taking for me 2 years, 2 years to
Mhm.
get really a year and a half, and I actually was well enough healed for this to actually, settle in.
Yeah,
But imagine if instead of a year and a half, you could get with a coach and 90 days later understand that it was better.
yeah. Yeah, and that's actually the thing about coaching or like I see myself as more of a facilitator and like getting all the people in the room and facilitating the right conversations to come alongside leaders. And it is very much that you can do it on your own, but then you've got to equip yourself. Like it's another skill set. So that's what I keep trying to tell people. I'm like, it's another skill set. Just because you're great at finance or you're a great physician and you can do surgery and you know how to sew people up and all the things, like that's incredible. But it doesn't, there's no, oh, because I'm good at this, that I'm also going to be a good leader. It isn't quite the same.
No. Asking for a friend. No.
Yeah, yeah, and so yeah, so it's when people are considering it and I explain, like, what I do, I'm like or it's also, again, like parenting, you can tell your child to brush their teeth all day long or pick up their room. I do this every day. My son's 12. I'm like, "Why are we still having this conversation?"
Mhm.
Grandma shows up, he does it right away. So I'm
Yes,
like the
our son is
grandma.
11.
Yeah.
I hear you loud and clear.
Yeah. So it's like sometimes, again, I come alongside great leaders. Those are the type that will like
Yep,
invest in the work and do,
same.
and also like in your services too. It's like the people who want to improve and get better, the ones who want to grow. And like all I do is come alongside you, and I'm like the objective third party, so you can kind of view your team like they're on a screen instead of being a part of it. Like you can kind of step back and participate as your team. And then again, I can do all the facilitation, I can do the coaching, I can do all that. And it's not that I'm not really telling your team anything drastically different than what you are. um, I'm just calling it out a different way. And again, coming alongside you. And it makes such a so
I
I
love that.
now have a very fulfilling career.
I love that. So to wind this up, Katie, where can people find you? Where's the easiest way to find you, get a hold of you, say, "Hey, I really think I need this in my life." Where's Katie?
Yeah, absolutely. My company is called peoplefluence.com. So peoplefluence, Fluence, all one word.com. You can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram, sort of on Facebook, but it's Katie Armentrout on LinkedIn and Facebook. Not
Awesome.
LinkedIn. LinkedIn and Instagram. There we go. Yeah.
Yes. Well, yes, we can look by name, but people fluence is where we'll look for the company. So thank you so
Yes.
much for your time. I appreciate it. It has been enlightening for sure, especially for those of us who know we need to kind of step our game in the leadership area. So
Yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
thank you.